let's start. The first question I want to ask, and we kind of covered it the other night, but we can do it again. Where did you get the name Shirley? Is it a family name?
No, it is not. I think Shirley Temple was the big star at that time. And I think because she was just so in the forefront, I think that's why I was named Shirley.
Did you know anybody else named Shirley?
I went to school, and there were 3 of us in the classroom.
Oh, so it was a really popular name at the time.
At that time, yes. Now, there was no other Shirleys in, any other time that I went to school. When I was in other classes, I didn't have Shirleys. Just at the time,
Just that time.
yes, when I was in high school, there were 3 of us in the one class.
Do you have a middle name?
Anne.
Is that a family name?
I just think Anne is a saint's name, and we were Catholic.
Right.
So that covered, I even though Shirley wasn't a saint's name, Anne was.
Right, Saint Anne.
Mhm.
Now, did you take that name when you got confirmed, or did you take a different name?
My confirmation name, oh goodness, I can't remember what right offhand, I can't remember what my confirmation name was.
It's okay. If you think about it later, we can talk about that. So you were raised Catholic.
Yes.
Yeah.
My dad was Lutheran. We got up on Sunday morning and got in the car, and depending on what time it was, maybe my dad dropped us off because it was time for church, and we went to church, and then he drove to his church, which was about, maybe 8-10 blocks away.
Oh, wow.
And then we walked. If he dropped us off, then we walked to the other church and got in the car and waited till he was ready.
So you went to separate churches?
Yes, my dad was Lutheran and my mother was Catholic, which was wow at that time.
Yeah, that would have been amazing at the time.
And but we girls were raised Catholic, and we went with my mother.
And there were just the two of you, you and
Just the 2 of
Cordine.
us, yes,
Yeah,
yes.
right. And so, what year were you born?
1935.
Do you remember much of the Great Depression?
Well, we went from the Depression, then in the late 30s into 40, the World War II started.
Okay. So World War II started in.
And so
right.
that all of the things that you didn't have during the Depression, all of a sudden, wow,
Yeah.
you had, and the economy was great.
Because everybody was building and making things
Yes.
but there were no men around during World War II.
No.
Did your father have to go to the war?
No, my father was, see, he was 40 when I was born, so he was by that time he was in his 50s, so no, he didn't go to, because of his age, he didn't
Right.
have to go to war.
Now, Patrick said, ask about Lincoln, Nebraska. Was your family originally from Michigan?
We were from my family was from Nebraska. My mother and all her family had all been, and Dad's family had all been born in Nebraska. Now, my Uncle Chris, who was from Michigan, he was from Sebring, Michigan. He must have got on the train and traveled to Nebraska and got off and got himself a job on the farm, and I think my grandmother's farm. I don't know that for sure, but I kind of think, or a farm in the neighborhood, and met my Aunt Emma, and they got married. Well, eventually then, she returned to Michigan with him.
Okay.
Now, at that time, they weren't farmers anymore. He had a factory job. And so my dad was thinking of getting married, and the farms, there was no farming. Farming was terrible, and the Depression in the West. So my aunt said, well, Chris can get you a job he could get you a job in the factory.
Right.
So if you come here, we can find you a job. So he did. He married my mother, and they came here, and they came to Michigan, and he got a job. Forget where in the world, Defoe Shipbuilding. Defoe Shipbuilding, and it was leading into the World War, so there were a lot of ships were being
And
built.
he was older.
Yes.
So how old was she when they got married?
My mother was like 22, and my dad was 40, like 40.
Wow. Did you ever ask her what about your dad drew her to such an older man?
I never did. I don't, it's funny. So many things after she passed, my sister and I got together and thought, we just should have had these conversations, and we didn't.
Yeah.
It was really sad because, you don't really, what drew her to, he was My dad was a handsome man in a subtle, gentle way,
Yeah.
and he had gentle habits. He was just a very gentle person.
Now,
And
tell me about your mom's family. Was she an oldest child?
she was the oldest child of 8. Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you why she wanted to go to Michigan, because she wanted to get out of town and stop having to raise those children.
Yeah, and she had sisters. They were all sisters except one brother.
Yeah.
She had one brother, Uncle Frank.
Uncle Frank.
Wow.
Yeah, he joined the service. He had a really high-ranking job in the service during World War, at the end of World War II.
So did your parents seem like they were in love?
Oh yes, they adored each other.
That's so nice.
They just adored each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's lovely. And then your dad was a relatively young man when he passed. How old was he when he passed?
My dad passed at 63.
Yeah, that's so young.
Mm-hmm.
And your mom remarried.
My mother remarried. Yes. Mm-hmm.
How old were your dad? How old were you when your dad passed?
I was probably, did you know my dad? No. So it was Gramps that you always remembered.
Right.
So it would have been, I would have had to have been,
23-ish.
oh,
20-ish.
I already had Patrick. So, well, it would have been like 25, maybe 25.
Okay. Wow.
Mhm.
Yeah. And so, did you like your stepfather?
Oh, we adored him. We just all just loved him. He was just such a likable person.
Yeah. You're
Yes.
very lucky to have two
He
of
was
those
he was a big hulking man, but just as gentle as he was big.
men. Yeah.
There wasn't nothing ungentle that he would ever do.
Did your mother ever work outside of the home?
One time we were going to take a vacation out west. Our relatives all still lived out west. And so my dad was still alive.
Mm-hmm.
And she took a job and worked for about 6 weeks to make money so that we would have enough to go. But she never, other than that, she never worked outside the home.
And what kind of work did she do when she was trying to raise that money?
She sewed in a sewing machine, someplace where they sewed things.
Oh, yeah, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Did she teach you how to sew?
Pardon me?
Did she teach you how to sew?
Yeah, we sewed at home. Mm-hmm. And then we also had sewing at school. So I just did a lot of, once I learned how to sew, it was less, nothing fit me. I was so thin
Mm-hmm.
and tall. Nothing was long enough. So once I learned how to sew, it was cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
It was cheaper to sew myself, plus it fit.
Right, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, what town did you grow up in Michigan?
Bay City, Michigan. I was born in Bay City, and I grew up in Bay City.
Lincoln.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was not born in Bay City. I was born in Lincoln, Nebraska.
Oh, you were born in Lincoln.
I was born in Lincoln, Nebraska, and I was a year old when my folks moved to Michigan.
Oh.
And my dad, there was no farming and they didn't own a farm, so they had lost all that during the Depression and so forth. And so they moved to Michigan because he could get a factory job.
Okay, so I thought he married her and then they went right away. That they got married and started a family and then they went together to Michigan.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Was
I was
Auntie
already, Auntie was born in Michigan,
Okay.
Oh, sure. Okay. And what's the age difference between the two of you?
2 years.
Okay.
And my Aunt Emma, who was my dad's sister, who already lived in Michigan, and Uncle Chris was from Michigan, she was real handy she was like a nurse with she never had any training, but she just was like a nurse. And when my sister was born, she was born at home.
Oh, wow.
Was born at home, and my aunt came for a weekend and helped it at our house.
Were you born at home too?
I was born at home too.
in Nebraska.
Mhm.
Wow, that's great.
That was I was on the precipice of modern times, but
Yeah.
I was on the backside of pioneer times.
Right. Yeah. Especially out in Nebraska.
Yes, yes,
Right.
yes.
Now,
Uncle Bud and Aunt Charlotte.
Those were my mother's
They
relatives.
traveled with you. Did they travel with?
No, they were from Bay City.
They already came. They
were
came
here.
They were already
Aunt
there.
Charlotte came when Cordine was born. to help take care of me and
Okay.
so forth. And so then when she got here, she stayed. She met, now how did they meet Uncle Bud? Who in the world? I can't remember how that all happened, but she met Uncle Bud, and so then she got married and stayed in Michigan.
Interesting. So that's how the family got to Michigan.
Yes,
So first, your father's brother,
his sister lived
his
here.
sister, right?
Because
okay.
her
But she
husband was
had
from
come
here.
to get her, right? Okay.
And he must have taken a train out west, and you know, who knows why he did that. but
So he followed her, and then your mother's sister followed her. So
Yes.
they kind of went in a clump.
yes.
Yeah, interesting.
Hmm